bring Nadi in. If you can unmute yourself, Nadi. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Geraldine and everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, hear you
Oh,
perfect.
fabulous. Technology is working today.
It is, thankfully.
Yeah, yeah.
Will you be presenting a PowerPoint or?
I will. I will.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to make you co-host
Okay.
and take it away.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So I was thinking about, how do the crop circles connect with a wisdom conference, right? What's the relationship? And what seems to be clear to me is that the crop circles are here to activate our innate intelligence, both individually and collectively. And so that's the sense of wisdom and, tapping into our own internal process, our own system, capacities, and genius, and really activating the aspects of ourselves that have been laying dormant that really contribute to our wisdom and our intelligence. So I'm going to give you a little overview of today, and it just feels so fast to try to cram this into 45 minutes, but I'll try to leave some time at the end of the presentation. So my vision is to go over the three main approaches to crop circles. One is the 3D, 2D, fascinating biophysical anomalies. Talk a little bit about the creation process, how they're made, who makes them, although that's quite a large subject. And we'll explore some of the empirical data that we love. Humans love evidence. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to bridge into some of the more esoteric aspects of consciousness and incredible spontaneous healing aspects of the crop circles. They have what we would consider magic and can perform miracles when really those are just sophisticated technologies that are activating systems that we aren't aware of yet. Some of us are, and the more sensitive you are, the more subtle systems you can become aware of. Wherever you're at, the crop circles are going to amplify your reality. And because they are so neutral and so based in the universal language of math and geometry, they are open to interpretation. So there isn't one right or wrong way. And it will become evident that I am incredibly biased and full in the belief of the crop circles being made by advanced civilizations, and that the really sophisticated technologies are far beyond the capacity of what humans know right now. So we'll spend a little time in the middle with the more sort of the next level of what the crop circles have to offer in terms of activation. And then we're going to go into the super esoteric levels of multidimensional activation and tapping into our DNA and really the extraordinary connection between consciousness and the collective of the human experience, how they influence both individually and collectively. And we'll talk a little bit about the technologies of light and sound codes that are created and crafted specifically by members of the Galactic Federation, and how our different advanced civilizations and star family are involved in the process for humanity, for our collective awakening. I find it endlessly fascinating. I invite you to explore more on your own if you are inspired. This information can be incredibly activating, and typically it can create a bit of an obsession if you're hooked by them, if you have an activation. So just know that if you have a compulsion to continue learning about the crop circles, I highly recommend it, because it is an activation. You are tapping into the larger parts of yourself, your higher wisdom that we all long to connect with. Take a little sip of water. So the overview is that I'm going to jump right into a rolling montage of crop circles. I'm going to be talking in the background. I have some fascinating information, but it's really fine if you tune me out entirely. You won't remember any of the information. It's really interesting. But where the real magic is just in looking at them. They are encoded with an incredibly multifaceted, multidimensional way of influencing our subtle systems, our psyche, and our complete energy body. So I'm going to put the circles on, and the invitation is really to breathe them in, almost as though you're going into a meditation, and see what arises when you're watching each crop circle. There can be lots of different experiences. You could have bliss states. You could fall asleep. You could have physical agitation. You could start yawning uncontrollably. So just know that whatever you're experiencing is perfect, and each circle will roll through after a minute. So whatever your experience is, it'll pass, and we'll go on to the next circle. So this is a powerful experience. I want everybody to put your psychic seatbelts on. It's very easy to underestimate the crop circles, and if you participate in the meditation of just looking at the crop circles, you will leave this workshop altered, and different aspects of yourself will have been activated. And you want to keep an eye out for vivid dreams, or feeling a little bit fuzzy just right after seeing the crop circles, or keeping an eye out for synchronicities. The crop circles are communicating in extraordinary ways. And so just opening your consciousness to that potential is innately, it's organically a shift, and connecting you with the wisdom of your knowing, and your higher intelligence, your wisdom. Lastly, I'm going to get right into the PowerPoint, but know that this is an energetic transmission. I just want to be clear. I think I've said all of that, but if you can, attempt to leave the linear, leave the cognitive attempt to figure them out. We have that desire. We love the empirical data, and yet there are multiple levels that are happening. So the more we can breathe and just find your curious place, the deeper the experience can go. So I'm going to get right into this. I want to add one last piece. I keep saying that. I want to add one last piece, which is my relationship to the crop circles, and why I'm so passionate about sharing the information. I had an activation about 10 years ago. I was exposed to crop circles, and they lay dormant in my psyche for about 7 years. I wasn't sort of connected to the process. And then in 2017, I saw one, and that was it. I became obsessed, and I wanted to draw them. I wanted them around me all the time. I plastered them all over the walls. And what I really wanted was the alignments that I wasn't quite connected to, but I just knew I felt on some level. I wouldn't articulate it as that. I just wanted to be around them and have that feeling. So if that happens to you, it's normal. And that experience led to my evolution. It led to my expansion, and my expansion sort of forced my hand. I had to start talking about them. I had to go out in public and teach and share the information. So I know firsthand that the crop circles have led to my expansion, have led to my evolution, and have allowed me to align my system with my wisdom, with my intelligence. And that's where I share from. And that's why I am so passionate about this subject, is because I believe that our individual alignments really contributes to the collective alignment, harmonic cohesion, and that's the thing that can lead us to our collective liberation, our collective evolution, and the success of the human species, right? This is a big deal to look at crop circles. There's a lot on the line. So, I know the Wisdom Conference is so wonderful because everything in this, all of the wonderful speakers are in service of activating our multidimensional selves, and in the purpose of knowing that that is the greatest offering that we have, is to tap our own wisdom. I think that's it. I'm going to shift right over into the PowerPoint, and I'm going to go into the empirical 3D information, and then I'll pop back on. We'll take a little bit of a break. Just a visual break from the crop circles. We'll segue into the next level of esoteric, and then we'll go into some more circles, take a little visual break, and go into the really far out stuff, which is where I live, and it's what I love. Okay, so here we go. Hopefully this just does it right. I'm always, just fingers crossed no matter what with the technology. I'm going to go into my, never goes away. Let's see, screen share, there we go. There it is. Okay. So again, the invitation is almost to put me in the background. And if you want, you could even minimize the sidebar where you have little images of people and me, and you can reduce it all the way so that it's just a little line. I encourage you to go full screen and really take in the crop circles. And again, notice whatever you're experiencing and just allow for it, breathe through it. And I'm not going to be sharing with you which farm or which county in England or where in the world or what kind of crop it is or when it was made, because those are details that are too complex to track, and I really want to give the broader experience energetically of the circles. That's my bias. So to talk a little bit about the circles, just some basics about when they're made and how they're made is a huge conversation. So we'll put that one on the side. This is the one that I saw actually in 2017 that just sprung the door open. There was no going back. And so the crop circles happen all over the world, but they are concentrated in the southern counties of England. And that is a fascinating conversation that I just keep learning more and more about. I'm gonna pause before going into that and cover a couple of details. So they are made all over the world. They happen during the crop season while there's crops in summertime and growing, and they have this wonderful, they're like temporary temples. They appear and then they go when the crops are mowed down. And oftentimes, the technology used in the making of the genuine circles, because there are man-made circles, there are government-made circles. In the genuine circles, where you feel the electrostatic charge, where you have a physical, energetic experience of the crop circles, whether you're there or not, those circles, the technology can alter the crystalline structure of the soil. They have the ability to increase the nutrition value, increase the propagation of the seeds, right? There's an influence in the crop that is extraordinary and measurable. There have been people working with the crop circles for decades who knew that evidence would be important. And so they've done really controlled studies of the crops out of the circles, the crops inside the circles. And I really encourage everybody to look into the research. It's very fun, very substantiating. And one of the really fancy terms for the kind of curious things that happen in the crop circles. That one just flipped really fast. That one just didn't want to be seen. That was curious. One of the phenomenon when you see the empirical data, a great way to refer to that is biophysical anomalies. It's the changes in the environment that come from the technologies. And That's a really fun way when you're trying to talk to other people and explain the remarkable nature of them. You can call it biophysical anomalies. And those are the measurable uh, aspects of the circles. Like, for example, if you go and dowse in the crop circles, you will find underlying geometries. They emerge to show us the patterns under the circles that are not necessarily visually evident to us. There are studies showing the electromagnetic shifts in the crop circles and the electrostatic charge that remains in the circles. We now have the ability, we didn't before, we just knew we felt good. We now have the ability to measure the fact that there are sonic frequencies in the crop circles. We didn't have that ability before, we had no suspicion. But they include, well, they don't include, they are made, the genuine circles are made by technologies of light and sound. And it involves all sorts of cool science that we'll kind of barely touch on. But hopefully, I'm going to give you enough that you really want to go learn more. That's my plan. So, tons of phenomenon where in genuine crop circles, the technology used keeps the crop alive. It doesn't damage anything. And so the crops are harvestable. And you can imagine as the formations happen in fields of farmers, there's all sorts of conversations about, crop circle enthusiasts versus the farmers and this relationship of the natural, the England culturally as well as geologically and spiritually, I guess. Lastly, the location of the crop circles. This is fascinating that some of them are going faster than others. I'm really curious about that. That's a great thing to mention, is that very curious and peculiar things can happen with crop circles. So we will see. So either that or some of them are bending time. I'm almost wanting to go in and flip this up if it keeps going, because I want everybody to have time with them. So the piece about them happening in England, I mean, it is astonishing. 98% of crop circles, maybe it's 96, happen in the southern counties. And I'm actually going to pause the share, and I want to really slow the crop circles down. So let me go back into that. And, oops, how did that happen? All right, let me end the share, and I'm going to go up here. And I'm going to see if I can make sure transitions. 1 minute. We got to apply to everybody, because it was when I'm doing the presentations, I'm in such a relationship with the crop circles that can you, Geraldine, are you there? Can you see my screen still? I don't know if you're there, or maybe if anybody can see. Let me see if I can go back. We were here.
I can see you.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to screen share. So I must have jumped out. I did jump out.
Sure,
here we go.
Nadi.
Yeah. All right, I'm going back into screen share.
Are you able to do it?
I am. I'm just kind of jumping around, and here we go. You should be able to see my screen now.
Yes, we got you.
Fabulous. I know what I did last night. I didn't apply the paste to all of them as I was adding them in, because the crop circles were talking to me and telling me which ones wanted to be in. It's a fascinating experience. I just outed myself a little bit. So about them being made in southern England. They're not, it looks like they're in those southern counties, but they're really, that location on the planet is such a nodal point that it can access the entire planet. Like, one of the things we want to try to do is go from this, 2D image. A lot of times for people, they come out into a 3D phenomenon. You start to see the geometries from multiple directions, and then they go into multiple dimensions, right? Like, these are interfacing and blipping in and out of time. They are not bound by our time constructs, and they are interacting in relationship with the Earth. the crop circles are here to activate not only us as humans, but the planet, and to help her shifting into, her multidimensionality and also her 5D, her fifth dimensional reality. So I actually learned this just the other day. This is such a great analogy that in acupuncture, you can access all the meridians through the ears, right? There's every single point, and you can do the entire healing work through the ears. England is like the ear of the planet. And you can imprint with the crop circles, and you can shoot direct energy lines to anywhere through, around, on the surface. So there's communication with the entire planet. There is assistance to the planet. That was a funny slip. The light codes that are in the crop circle are of service to the healing of our entire system, and that includes our planet. So let's see. Let me see if there's anything else on the biophysical, because we just jumped in and took a little break there visually. I'm going to pause because it is really good. Let's see if I pause. Okay, resume share. So let me come out for a second, because it really is important to visually change up. It can be more powerful than we recognize. So all of that is to say, there's incredible evidence, and I encourage you to go into it, but it's very limited. What the invitation is to take, the shift is from seeing them from this third dimensional reality, from interpreting them as linear, from interpreting them from limited constructs of our cultural and sociological interpretations, right? Again, it's that they are so neutral that they help us broaden out our consciousness. I'll get into the sophistication in a minute. So I'm hoping everybody who's tuning in is taking some nice deep breaths and allowing for the process. I'm always so curious as to how this is going for people, but I'll keep going because we have a limited time. I'm happy to be in touch if you're totally activated and you want to contact me later and say, like, what is happening? Happy to go into that more. Okay, so I'm going to go back into screen share. Right there is where I want to ask questions of everybody, but we have to keep going because of the time. Okay, so back into it. I think it's going to keep going. I hope so. So I will pay attention to if it's not. This is an incredible formation. They all have such unique geometries, and they all also have star glyphs encoded in the geometries, in the patterns. They speak vibrationally, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, and I want to make sure that I know you can see one crop circle, but I want to make sure that I didn't stop the whole thing in general. So let me see. I think it's staying on this one longer than I want. So going into the second aspect of the crop circles, which is the consciousness piece. And it is hard to separate. Oh, you know what? I'm going to slip in here. I'm going to go back. I'm going to come out of the share, and I'm going to go back into it, because I think that that might have stopped the share there. Okay, I'm going to go here. Okay, great. So the issue of who makes them, right? This is a little bit more in the 3D, but we're going to jumble it all together. There's the question of, are they man-made? Are they operatives from our military and governments? And are they made by, ET civilizations? And the answer is all three, and that they are all of service to consciousness. And that's really an interesting thing to consider. But the technology is so sophisticated that it's working with the consciousness of everyone who makes them. That there is some sort of soul agreement to be making the patterns that are influencing our consciousness when we're simply visualizing and viewing them. So it's true, and I really invite everyone to go beyond, on some sense, the who makes them. And if you come to the conclusion that they are man-made, that's a little limiting. It's not going to be as expansive as considering our galactic community, right? They really invite you to broaden beyond this third dimensional reality, beyond our human ability to make these, and begin to open your consciousness to our cosmic family and the different civilizations that are here to assist us by imprinting this technology. But I don't want to deny it's not that there aren't man-made ones. A lot of times you can tell the difference. A lot of times you can't. And I really was curious about that because I would look at some of them, I would totally resonate with them and wonder, is this man-made? And the deal is that because these civilizations are involved, they have the ability to reprogram the frequencies of the crop circles. They have the ability to go in and shift the molecular makeup so that if there is any nefarious intention in the geometries or in the formation, they can shift up the frequencies. They can recode the geometries and the formations. So that is a significant issue, but it's not an either or. It's all of the above in terms of who makes them. But there are big differences that you can tell between all of the different authors. And when you think about the different civilizations that are involved, if we just say, oh, we have advanced civilizations, we have ETs. Well, is it just Arcturians? No. The blueprints for all of the crop circles and the whole project are kept on the Arcturian mothership, but the Galactic Federation and the representatives from all the different civilizations are who oversee the project, which is why you get so many different variations of formations. And I used to try to categorize them all. Some of them look similar. Some of them have different patterns. And I didn't really understand that. But then I got that piece that, the races involved are so much more varied than we can possibly understand. We tend to limit to Pleiadians, Andromedans, Sirians, Orions, right? But these are tapping into very, very ancient presence and intelligence that are here and assisting us. So back into the esoteric. Part of what we're talking about, and this is also the advanced technology, the circles are encoded. I've mentioned that the frequencies of sound and light are used to create, the genuine quote-unquote crop circles. And the level of that technology is designed to connect with each human individually, uniquely interfacing with the biochemistry of our brains. Uniquely, one person walks in, the technology influences them in the perfect way with their system to what they can tolerate, integrate, and activate, right? That went fast. There is so much going on here. And it's not just tapping your 3D DNA. These are activating and working on levels of your soul DNA. These have the ability to get to your fundamental blueprint and purpose here on the planet, your soul agreements. These can really touch you in just core places that are essential to our multidimensionality and our expansion. We're just not in touch with them. So a lot of times, what's happening in the crop circles is completely invisible to us. We're not connected to our subtle systems. And so the crop circles are getting in there and they're connecting. They're connecting the dots. They're connecting the fascia of the spiritual fascia. Invite everyone to take a nice deep breath. Here's a really great example of, pentagonal geometry. Some of them are very obvious. Some of them are very subtle. And a lot of them, the images vary based on how the sunlight hits the crop circle, how new it is, what kind of crop it is, and is it early in the season? Is it, the sunset, is it late in the season? You'll see all different examples. The golden ones are the ones late in the fields in the seasons. And there's fascinating aspects to what that means as well. so much to talk about. I want to make sure I'm on time. Great, I have a little time. This circle has, is it 79? It has 79 segments, both on all three rings. And that is just an incredible level of precision. You know, hard to imagine any kind of man-made technology going in for that one. But, you know, I worked with that one for a while. A lot of times you can go through phases of working through different circles, or, you know, some of these might really pop for you and some others just have no real resonance. And you know, there's a lot to that statement in terms of perhaps which civilizations you might be resonating with, right? There might be some crop circles that are directly related to the Pleiadians, you know, and so what does that show you of your relationship to that consciousness? So you see the two number 2 and number 3 of the, you know, explorations in crop circles, namely the, you know, the looking into the consciousness of them. It bridges right into the, you know, who makes them, and like we're having the conversation assuming that advanced civilizations do, because that's where the depth and the you know, the multidimensional activation is. But let me stick just for a minute with the sort of more understandable aspects. So with those sound frequencies, when we go into crop circles, and when we're exploring the fact that they are made by sonic frequencies, what that does technologically is when we step into a crop circle, it aligns the hemispheres of our brain, like essentially like a binaural beat. Like you would go in and a theta rhythm would create that sort of harmony and that sort of altered state. You know, that's part of the explanation for why people report such extraordinary experiences in the crop circles. There's tons of reasons why, but that's one of them. That's one that we can really anchor in. And every crop circle has a really a unique story behind it. And this one was part, I'm just branching off everywhere here. I hope, yeah. It's just so much. This circle, this formation, was part of a response in what was called the Arecibo experiment. That was 27 years ago. A message was sent out by SETI in the hopes of trying to connect with ETs, and it included information like our DNA, our humanoid form, our solar system, and I think it was in I can't remember what year it was, but we received the response in the form of a crop circle, of a crop formation, and that's an amazing piece. This was part of it. They were indicating the technology that they use, which is satellite technology versus sorry, not satellite, versus the radio waves that we use. All right, I'm gonna merge segments again. In this crop circle, you've got the geometry in the center, but I have a mouse, that's right. But on the outside, you've got this extraordinary lay of the crop, which means, you know, how the crop is laid on top of each other, and it sometimes is braided and has 3 different layers, sometimes even more. You'll see other crop circles with that example. And sometimes they're in these tufts, sometimes they're in rows of nests. It's extraordinary, and I believe that when the humans attempted to create the man-made circles and discredit the phenomenon, then the lay of the crop got extremely sophisticated. Here's another example of one where the lay actually creates the dimensionality, right? And I notice I'm not going into detail about each crop circle, and that is intentional, but it's also misses out on quite a bit of the story behind each circle. You know, and the geometry in here is 7-fold, and the numerology behind, you know, 7 and 14. The numerology of these is fascinating when you start to break down the geometries. And I'm hoping you're starting to get a picture of how extraordinary these formations are. They're communicating on so many different levels. They are communicating with our geometry. You know, we are in harmonic proportions. We are the phi ratio. And so when they're using the phi ratio in some of the math and some of the formations, we resonate with them so deeply, not only on a physiological level, but on this molecular, cellular level. This crop circle is perhaps the most powerful for me. I consider this my unique star glyph, and I will out myself even more. Maybe I won't. That may not go all the way, but this circle came to me in my explorations about my galactic origins. That's a really good way to say it. And I had all sorts of activations, and you could say a remembering of who I am beyond this physical form, of who my previous lives were, of why I came here on the planet at this particular time. So these are some of the characteristics that the crop circles bring, is this remembering of how much more, of parallel aspects of ourselves that exist in other realities right now. They really just break down the construct of time. And this one was so powerful for me, I had to draw it. I drew out the code. And when you get into drawing them, it's just another level of activation. It's another level of remembering. So all these different esoteric levels are happening when we are looking at the crop circles and just engaging with them. Hemispheres aligning the hemispheres of the brain. And then there's so many experiences. I mean, hundreds, if not thousands, of experiences of spontaneous healing, spontaneous remission of chronic illness, subtle underlying, mood, I don't want to say mood imbalances, right? Where we've come onto this human experience, and we've got, these biophysical or biochemical disharmonies that when you go into the crop circles, they can regulate these systems within ourselves. And when I'm talking about that, we just pause. Like, that's amazing technology. That's why we can say advanced technology, because they are working with each individual's system completely, specific and appropriate to where they are at that time in their consciousness and what they can absorb. And it really is the invitation for the next level. And if that involves physical healing, that's what happens. I've actually experienced that firsthand, seeing someone walk into a crop circle call, or when we used to do things in person, walk into a class in, 2 canes, barely able to make it up the stairs. She stayed in a crop circle, she stayed in the class, left without the canes, and was just completely in good shape. So I'm going to take a pause so that we can breathe a little bit and take some nice breaths. Come back to the room here and see everyone who is excited and participating. It's really lovely to see such a crowd. I'm thrilled that there is this kind of exposure to the formations. So let's take a nice deep breath together as we segue into the next more esoteric realms. And although I've hinted at them, we'll cover a little bit about the technologies involved, and then we'll come back for questions and answers. So take a look at your environment, take a look around, remember that you're on the planet, remember that you're in your body. These can really take you out. So we'll just ground for a minute with some nice deep breaths. And I'm checking the time. It's just ridiculous that I have like 5, maybe 10 minutes. So it's just so crazy to cram this in, but at least you're having a taste, and we're sharing a little bit of the experience. Yes. Sometimes they just stop me and I have to breathe with them as well. So a lot of the information about all of the crop circles comes from, like I said, researchers who have been doing the work in the field and gathered empirical data and give us those measurements, and that sort of, they substantiate the phenomenon, right? But a lot of the information comes from channelers, and one in particular whose name is Judith Moore, and she is extraordinary. She was she's been in the she's been on the scene for, I don't know, 3 decades, since they started, and she's a channel for the Arcturians and many others. But essentially, she is her name is, the channel is Leolin, and she is from the Council of Abora and the Keepers of the Records of Ra. And so she has a specific frequency that she's tuning into, and that consciousness is part of the team creating the crop circles. They are part of the Galactic Federation that are overseeing the project for humanity's evolution, because this is the best way. This is one of the ways that we can activate our consciousness. And so much information is coming out, so much wonderful not just activating, but so much information, like this conference, sharing all of the ways that we can get in our psyche that is so blocked off. They kind of wiggle through the cracks, and so Leolin is one of the group overseeing that project to help humanity and the planet. So, in the more esoteric interpretations from the channel, crop circles are fractal formulas of light and sound frequencies that are encoded into the third dimension as tools for ascension. And they are interacting with the collective mind. And there's this whole, not only the human collective mind, but our galactic community. And there's this incredible relationship about the origins of the formations, where they come from in the ships, how they're relayed down and step down the frequencies in order to enter the third dimension, because these are extraordinary frequencies. And much like humans, they have to kind of jam themselves into the third dimension. So one of the things that we know now that we didn't before is the technology that is used in the making of the circles actually interfaces with the crops, right? It doesn't just, we're not just talking about laying down the crops. What it is it's an interaction with the hypergenetic consciousness of the plant. They are working with the earth, with the consciousness of the plant to offer these formations. And there is an agreement with the crop, but shifting into the idea of consciousness, and that everything is connected. That's part of what they're asking us to shift into, is that relationship that we have with the natural world. And these lastly, what I'll go for here, it's really such a jam-packed hour, is that one of the invisible aspects of the crop circles, of the really multiple dimensional properties, is that they are encoded with star glyphs, basically hieroglyphs, light language, if you're familiar with light language, and this intelligence that absolutely bypasses our linear rational ability to understand these. This is part of the soul DNA activation, is that we are drawn to certain formations. We are drawn to things that we intuitively know are activating us. Even if we wouldn't use that word, we intuitively resonate with a shape, and the suggestion is that there is a star glyph, there is an invisible imprint that is a match for some aspect of your soul DNA, of your physiological, psychospiritual needs for your evolution, and also collectively for the evolution. The ability of these technologies to work on so many multiple layers, work with plasma technology, go beyond the construct of time and space. I will leave you with the one frame that I've recently gotten behind. I was doing a session with someone. We were doing something very like this. We were just watching the crop circles and going into our experience of them. And what about this? What about the idea? You have to go with me for a second and assume, that one, it's a hyperbolic cube. Assume for a moment that there is another aspect of you that is on a mothership somewhere, that is on another station, that is part of that galactic federation that is overseeing the project, right? Just play with that idea that there's part of you that's on a ship. And what if, beyond the confines of this third dimension and of this limited construct of time, we know in our minds, it's hard to understand in an application process, we know that there is no such thing as time, that everything exists simultaneously. So what if part of you was on that ship and knew what your human aspect needed and was part of creating a certain circle that you would then respond to? Like, what if your psyche is giving you clues and all we have to do is sit and look with them? And that helps us connect to the intelligence that we are beyond this human experience. I think that sums it up. So it's 10:45. I know there are so many questions and we could go everywhere, and I will do my best to answer them. I think that's the comprehensive overview, and I'll go ahead and come back into the shared virtual space here. And, just know there are thousands of these. They've been happening for decades. And so you can go in, I usually go into Pinterest, and, you can just search for crop circles, or online anywhere, and just, find them. Just sit with them. If one particularly resonates with you, print it up, put it around you. There's also practices of printing one up, and then if you have some kind of physical ailments, actually working with the crop circle and energetically, and asking that form to assist you in your healing. I mean, you can go as far as you want to go with these, and you could treat them as an entity, as a guide, as a guardian for you, and you can go into dialogue with it as it's a reflection of your higher self and your innate wisdom. So the invitation is to go further. You have some information for a launch point. And I guess, Geraldine, are you there that we could go into some question and answer?
Yeah.
I imagine there are some, but if there aren't, I can keep talking.
No, that's amazing. If you want, you can keep talking, but we do have some questions about the connection between light language and crop circles. Is there a connection between light language and crop circles?
Absolutely. I can show you. There is a significant text that I've been using. This is Judith Moore's book. It was she wrote it with Barbara Lamb, and it's crop circles revealed the language of light. So we have this inherent light language because it's about frequency, right? It's about the frequency of light. We are sound, and the light codes are working with us, much like light language. You could just assume that light language is imprinted in the formations. It's just we can't really see it sort of to the naked eye, if you will. But if you are tuned vibrationally, you can really, much like light language, you can work with I'm just trying to find a good example. There's so many. You can work with the frequencies of light and take them into your system. This is a great one. So I'm gonna. Oh no, you can see me this way. So in this book, she shares so much information, but what the channel was describing is, it's really hard for me to see. Here's the picture of the crop circle, and then here is a picture of the glyph that she was able to get from channeled information. And you can see it's much like hieroglyphs or symbols that are speaking directly to our psyche. And in that crop circle, Judith, through Leolin, was able to interpret that crop circle represents the evolution of pure God seed into its unique divinity, the divine procreative connection of planetary DNA. That crop circle is the mathematical formula for the activation code that has been engraved in the Pyramid of Giza. It is just endlessly fascinating. So the light language, if you study light language, and I actually have calls and classes about it to learn what it's here to do for us, absolutely yes, crop circles and light language are directly related in that they are attempting to access our abilities for communication on multiple levels. It's really extraordinary stuff. Thank you for that question. I hope that answers it, but there's a lot more information on that as well.
That's amazing. Thank you, Nadi. We also have another question about where are these crop circles mostly located?
Mhm.
And do the ley lines play a role in where they are placed?
Absolutely, absolutely. As I was mentioning really early in the talk, there is huge significance to the fact that they are created in southern England. Now they exist throughout they show up everywhere in the world. Where I am in Oregon, when the crop circles started showing up in about the 90s, in the early 90s, 1990 specifically, they started showing up on the fields, and then in the desert, the southeast corner of the Steens Mountains. It's open mud flats. It's hard packed desert. There was this enormous Sri Yantra that was, I don't know, it like 13. If you unpacked the geometry, it was 13 miles wide. It was enormous, and so they happen everywhere. They don't necessarily get reported when they're in Russia and France. The reporting is focused in southern England, but they absolutely interface with the ley lines of the planet, and it's one of the central nodes of energy lines that can connect with almost everywhere in the planet. I would say everywhere. So uh, you could imprint a crop circle in one specific location of Wiltshire County, for example, and it would be a direct line to Peru and communicates something specific and unique to the Peruvian culture. And it, it does matter. It is concentrated in England for the energies. It also has to do with the particular geology of that island, which is sandstone and chalk, and those two substrates are very conductive of water. It also really, the ley lines, they are also the essence of our planetary energy. Through waters, the information is completely a relationship between the Earth and the technologies that are coming from above. There, isn't that an interesting thing I'm doing with my hands? Like, what is that? Who knows? That's probably some light language coming through. But it matters a lot that they are in southern England in terms of the frequency of our planet and activating her consciousness, and then that perhaps it's just the most efficient and effective way to get the information out to the planet and imprint and encode. Yes, it matters, but they happen everywhere. They really do. You can't discredit that.
Beautiful. And then one last question is from And Kami. Never heard of the experiences. Any examples of what happens when you step into them, into the crop circles?
Yes, hundreds of examples. So many anecdotal experiences of our system going into genuine crop circles. There really are differences. There really are man-made and government created for a disinformation campaign in order to keep this information from us. This information, the technology is so liberating. It really breaks us out of a 3D construct and this limited belief of scarcity and division. And so when you step into a genuine crop circle, there's a profound physiologic, psychospiritual experience. Now, that isn't to say that just not to limit it to walking into a 3D location. You can experience incredible altering influence from a distance and from a picture. But walking into the circles, into the genuine formations, there is an incredible interface with the multiple layers of our subtle sensory systems, of our physiology, and really stories of people going in with multiple sclerosis, right, that have had chronic disease that literally walk out of the formation free of their illness, right? And just stories after stories of spontaneous healing, remissions like that, and also sort of altering our brain patterns, altering those neural pathways that are so stuck in rigid belief systems. They really can alter every program that is ingrained in us. They can work to loosen the impact of this, you know, program that we're running here. So those are some examples, and they're really endless. I could go on and on, but again, that's back to how the sophisticated technology works with the unique construct of our bodies and our entire being to really help us tap into those levels that contribute to our healing. And just finally, I don't mean to suggest that all of the answers are in something outside of ourselves, right? This isn't that the ETs are coming and the crop circles are going to save us. They are an interface. They are a reflection of our consciousness. They are a reflection of the work that we have done to open to our higher intelligence, to open to our true wisdom that can then collectively help humanity open to our wisdom as a society and our ability to be an interconnected civilization, our ability to tap abundance and unity consciousness. They are here to help what's innately in us. They're great. So, Geraldine, are we winding it up? I always love to do things a little bit before the hour versus like that pressured time, like, jamming things in. So how are we at? Is there anything else, or does it feel eliminated?
Yeah, we actually do have one more question,
Okay.
since we have just a couple minutes. Questions about how crops are actually affected, maybe at the DNA level, or the comparison of the nutritional values of crops between the normal crops and the crops that are grown in crop circles.
Exactly. No, that it is so wonderful to have empirical evidence like that, the data that can come from studying the nutritional value, the way that seeds can become far more productive in how strong the crop grows, how it can endure, not a what's like an infection of the crop, like they are stronger, they have a resilience, and like the nutritional value goes up somewhere like 400%. And part of what I was just learning the other day is that that's actually part of the technology is to reseed, to remember, help the origins of our food. We have so depleted the nutritional value with our farming strategies. We've just wiped out so much of what those crops actually used to offer. And so the technology is actually reinvigorating the nutritional value, and is part of healing humanity on that level, because we're not mineralizing. We don't have the food just doesn't have the properties that we need to do well. So it's actually really, really multi-layered of, yes, the actual crops are measurably impacted in improved ways, but it's improved beyond what we can actually really register. So yes, the answer is yes and yes. It's a great learning. They've done studies under pyramids as well. When you plant seeds and you start seedlings in a pyramidal structure. Same thing. The growth is remarkably improved. Nutritional value is massively improved, and things like that, like propagation, their ability to repeat themselves.
Wow, so amazing. Nadi, what an incredible presentation. Thank you so much for gifting us with that vibrational, informational download, really, on all of this information. If you want to connect with Nadi, you can check out her information on the website, and you can also find out about that book, because Nadi, you have an interesting book. So what is the name of that book again?
That is Crop Circles Revealed, The
Awesome.
Language of Light. And this is by Barbara Lamb and Judith Moore. It's a
Beautiful.
really wonderful book. This is one of the more in-depth. There's tons of books, but they really go into the subtle realms and all of our multidimensionality. And that's what part of what the conference is about, is really how to
Exactly.
tap ourselves and all we are.
Love that. Thank you so much. Well, please connect with her, and thank you again for being here,
Thank
Nadi.
you for the opportunity. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.